Monday, December 4th. On the first Monday of winter, one of the most important publications of the day is the German trade balance. This is the exports and imports of tangible goods in the state, or the combined balance of services, factor income, and current transfers. This report has a significant impact on the euro. At 5 p.m., the U.S. will report on its factory orders. This indicator reflects the change in the volume of orders for durable and short-term goods received by American enterprises in the reporting period compared to the previous one. Its growth indirectly characterizes consumer demand for industrial goods and allows for forecasting the increase in industrial activity. This may favorably affect the dollar. Tuesday, December 5th. On Tuesday, the Reserve Bank of Australia released a number of important economic statistics. At 5:30 a.m., the regulator will present its interest rate decision. The regulator's board adopts it 11 times a year on a monthly basis, except for January. Each decision of the RBA directly affects the Australian dollar, especially in the rate changes. By 5 p.m., market participants will be able to analyze the ISM US Non-Manufacturing PMI. It reflects business conditions and activity in the service sector in the US in the reporting month, and is calculated based on a survey of representatives of 375 companies from 17 industries in the country's non-manufacturing sector. This is an important indicator of the health of the economy, whose growth is usually positively reflected in the US dollar. At the same time, this country will also report JOLTS Job Openings. This indicator is part of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics report, which is based on surveys of employers about employment at their companies, the number of open positions, hiring and layoffs. In general, the increase in the number of jobs is favorable for the dollar. Wednesday, December 6th. As early as 2:30 a.m. Wednesday, investors will receive data on Australia's GDP in quarterly and annual terms. The indicator reflects the change in the market value of goods and services produced by the national economy in the reporting period compared to the previous one. Net of production costs, its growth is interpreted as a strengthening of the economy, while a decrease is interpreted as a weakening. GDP directly affects the Australian dollar, which is associated with inflation. At 15:15 p.m., the U.S. will release the ADP Nonfarm employment change. It includes data collected from about 406,000 private businesses in the country, which employ up to 23 million people, more than 20% of all private sector workers. When considering the interest rate, the Fed focuses on the strength of the labor market. Among other things, therefore, a rise in the rate could have a positive impact on the dollar. At 5 p.m., the Bank of Canada will present its interest rate decision. It is adopted 8 times a year and it is the main tool for regulating inflation, which is implemented by the central bank of the state. Changes in interest rates lead to short-term volatility in the Canadian dollar. If the rate rises, it favorably affects the national currency. On this day, it is worth paying attention to China, which by 4 a.m. will report on the trade balance. The indicator reflects the difference between the price of exports and imports in the country for a certain period. The impact of the trade balance value on the yuan is ambiguous and depends on the context of business cycles or other economic indicators, for example, the dynamics of production. At 12 p.m., there will be information on European Union employment change. The calculation of the indicator takes into account all types of employment: full-time, part-time, salaried, seasonal and temporary work, self-employment, etc. It also includes unpaid employment, for example, family members employ in family production. The growth of the indicator, as a rule, positively affects the euro. Friday, December 8th. On the last trading day of the coming week, by 01:50 a.m., we should wait for the release of statistics on Japan's GDP. Its calculation includes private consumption, government spending, expenditures of all enterprises, net exports of the country, as well as fees for private housing rent. Values of the indicator above the expected are considered favorable for the Japanese yen, and values below the forecast are considered negative. By 6:30 a.m., the Reserve Bank of India will reveal its interest rate decision. It is decided by the bank's Monetary Policy Committee 6 times a year and is the rate at which the regulator provides short-term loans to the country's commercial financial institutions. If the bank's rate is higher than expected when announced, it can be considered favorable for the Indian rupee, and vice versa. Finally, at 3:30 p.m., the U.S. will release the change in non-farm payrolls. The list of industries counted in the report includes professional and business services, healthcare, finance, mining, construction, manufacturing, trade, transportation and warehousing, leisure and hospitality. The release of this report usually leads to high volatility in the currency markets. The growth of the indicator has a positive impact on the dollar.